Sometimes love isn't enough. As an adoptive mom, people would often say this to me, as if to imply I couldn't love my son enough to change behaviors or heal his trauma, so I should probably just give up. At least that's how I took those four powerful words, which had buried themselves deeply in my mind, leading me to doubt my ability to parent my child. Sometimes love isn't enough. That is the truth. Oftentimes, you need love and powerful, personalized tools to raise a child who's experienced trauma and disrupted attachment, or a child who you're struggling to connect with. I am on a mission to help parents raising kids with a tricky past to show up with unconditional love and practical tools to lovingly manage even the most challenging of times. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Plus, if you like what you hear, I'd love for you to leave a review. Now let's get to the good stuff. Welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. I'm your host, Angie Grandt, and I am just so happy to have you here with me today. I hope that today with this episode, you hear exactly what you need to hear. So, I have been reading this incredible book by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. It's called What Happened to You? And I have heard of Dr. Bruce Perry's work in the past, and I've known for a bit of time that Oprah's platform on her show was really about trauma. She interviewed so many beautiful guests, but trauma was definitely a recurring theme. But in reading this book, it has really got me shifting the way that I think about trauma, think about my own experiences, think about my son's experiences, think about the clients that I'm coaching, and quite honestly, to think about just people that I interact with every day. Because when we start asking better questions, we look at things so differently. So, the premise of this book by Dr. Perry and Oprah Winfrey is all about looking at trauma instead of saying, "What's wrong with you?" but really shifting that question to say, "What happened to you?" I think about this a lot now in listening to other people's stories, listening to people complain actually. This is where it's come up a lot for me recently is as I listen to one person complain about another person, I can't believe that they said this, or I can't believe they did that, or they are, acting in such a way. And I've really been just sitting back and listening to stories and asking this question. I wonder what happened to them that led them to feel so overwhelmed about somebody else's response. Or putting myself in the shoes of the person they're complaining about. I wonder what happened to that person that led them to acting the way that they're acting. I think that we can apply this question to anybody that we interact with any day at any moment. You think about you're driving to work in the morning and somebody cuts you off and you honk your horn at them and they turn around and give you the finger, right? What if we looked at that interaction instead of saying, like, what's wrong with them? What's wrong with the person who, gave the finger? What's wrong with the person who got angry and was honking? What if we instead looked at both people and said, wow, I wonder what happened to you that led you to have such an angry response to, a mistake? What happened to each of those people that led them to act in a way that is lacking in kindness and compassion for others? Because I firmly believe that we all, every human was not born to suffer, was not born to feel, pain. I feel so strongly in my heart like we were all born to fulfill our purpose, to feel joy, to love, and to be loved. And So when I watch people around me and as I reflect on my own reactions to things, I'm really starting to ask this question a ton more. What happened to you? What happened to you to get you off of that path of responding to others with compassion, responding to others with curiosity, with love, with joy? So I know that might sound a little bit out there, right? Like you're at home dealing with a child with challenging behaviors, and to you, it probably seems inevitable, predictable, understandable that you're losing your, you know what, when your child for the 10th time today has left their tennis shoes in front of the door and, you keep tripping over them, or you are struggling to get your child to hand in their homework and they're failing math class. To you, it seems inevitable that you feel frustrated, overwhelmed, angry, irritated, whatever you might be feeling. And I'm not saying that your feelings are wrong at all. Your feelings are your feelings. You're welcome to feel them. But what if, so let's look at this from two angles. So you're the parent and your child is engaging in behaviors that drive you crazy. They're not handing in their homework, they're breaking curfew, they're, I don't know, destroying things in their room. They have stolen money for the, 10th time this week, whatever it might be. When our children are engaging in behaviors that drive us crazy, what if we, instead of reacting to that behavior, started asking that question? What happened to them that would lead them to acting in such a way? What happened long ago, or what happened today that reminded them of that previous event? What if we, instead of reacting to our kids' behaviors, what if instead of that, we started responding by asking ourselves questions about our kids? I know if I had done this when my son was younger, if I had res- instead of reacting to the behaviors, whatever was going on in our home that week, if instead of reacting to the behavior, if I instead had responded with a question of what happened to him that led him to acting in such a way that these are the behaviors we're seeing. If I had taken a step back, taken a pause, and asked a different question, I knew the answer. I knew that there was a history of trauma. But in the moment, my my view of that was so clouded by the behaviors. All I could see was the behaviors. And I was overwhelmed and my cup was empty and I didn't feel like I had the energy to heal the trauma when I was dealing with the chaos of behaviors every single day. It was overwhelming. It was frustrating. It was exhausting. It was taking everything I had to keep my cool and not react negatively to the behaviors, but I was reacting nonetheless. I was reacting by, as I talked about in a previous episode, I was reacting by, trying to figure out what diagnosis is causing this behavior problem, what diagnosis is causing that behavior problem, or I was reacting by trying to, um, use a behavior management system of you know, whether it be, consequences of missing out on rewards, or I was trying to beef up my praise to shift, like, well, if he just could see that the good behavior gets him a better response than the not so good behavior, then the pendulum would shift. Nonetheless, whatever reaction I was having, I was reacting to the behavior. I was not asking myself that question every time. What happened to him that would lead to the stealing, the lying, the breaking, the, behaviors at school, the fights, the whatever it might be, right? I wasn't asking myself those questions. I was reacting to the behaviors. And although I was keeping my cool, I was reacting. So when I reflect back on, man, oh man, if I had responded by taking a step back, taking a pause and asking a different question, I would have responded differently. I would have taken a deep breath and said, wow, yeah, I can see how what he has experienced, his questioning his lovability, questioning his sense of self-worth could lead to these behaviors, could lead to him being out of integrity with himself and doing things that didn't align with the good, beautiful human that I know that he is. Because I knew he had a good heart. It was hard to see sometimes. It was really hard to see sometimes. But but I knew that it was there. But I couldn't respond to that because I was so busy reacting to the behaviors. But I also want to encourage you to also ask yourself that same question, right? So when I think back to my reactions to behaviors, and like I said, I wasn't yelling. I wasn't getting angry, but I was reacting nonetheless. What if in those moments I had also asked myself that same question? What if I had done some self-reflection in the moments to say like, wow, what happened to me that's causing me to react in such a way when I know that kids don't want to be bad. I know that my son didn't want to, hurt other people or get in trouble. Although sometimes his words would say that, right? Sometimes he would say, I want to get in trouble. I want to be bad. I want to push people away. Those were the words that came out of his mouth. But I get it, right? Because when someone is struggling with their sense of lovability, when someone is struggling with their sense of self-worth, it makes perfect sense that those are the words that would come out of a child's mouth or an adult's mouth, right? This happens in relationships too. But had I known this question, and this is why I'm sharing it with you, but had I taken a step back and asked myself that same question too, like, wow, Angie, what happened to you that's leading you to doubt that he's a good human who just wants to be loved, who just wants to see his own sense of self-worth? Asking this question about yourself and your own reactions with your kiddos, and asking yourself this question about your kiddos will help you make a powerful, life changing shift in the way that you respond to behaviors. But it is not easy. It's not easy at all because we are in this cycle of reaction. But I share this with you because I know the power in this question. I know that when we can look at everybody in our life, even strangers, and instead of that reactive response of what is wrong with you? What is wrong with so and so? If we can cease asking that question and really start asking what has happened to you, to look at other people through a different lens, we can't help but showing up with compassion. So that is my challenge for you this week. As you listen to this episode, I really encourage you to listen to it on repeat. Listen to it a few times and really implement something to help yourself remember to ask this question. Put it in your car so that when somebody cuts you off and you feel angry, you ask a different question. You'll respond differently to people. But more importantly, put it in a place where you will remember this when you tend to get reactive or when you tend to see behaviors in your child that are just pushing you to the end of your rope. Ask yourself better questions so that you can start creating better responses. And when you're ready to make lasting change in your relationship, really put this into practice every day, my contact info is all in the show notes. I would love to connect with you and see how I can help your family. So that is it. Take care, and we will talk soon. hope that you found this episode so incredibly powerful. Thank you for joining us for Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. If you resonated with what you heard here, please subscribe to this podcast and give us a review. You can also follow us on all the socials. Check the show notes for all the details about how to start tackling behaviors and creating a powerful, loving relationship with your child, a child who needs your love the most. And if your gut's telling you that it's time for a change now, book a free consult. I'd love to help you love unconditionally and show you that you have that power within you.